AI isn't just the future, it's your moat. In this episode, I'm joined by Alberto Rizzoli, the co-founder and CEO of V7 Labs, to talk about how smart companies are building defensible advantages with AI. We cover why relying on consultants isn't enough, how to start experimenting internally, and the real-world impact of AI agents on workflows, cost, and job security. If you're serious about future-proofing your business, you don't want to miss this interview. How can business owners look to build AI moats around their business in 2025 and beyond?
It's a question everyone's asking themselves. And at the moment, AI is changing the landscape across the legal world, the accounting world, the insurance world. Any company that has a back office and that processes a lot of documents has this looming threat of AI potentially replacing the work of many, many people. And the best way to resist that and to create a moat is to start building with it. There's a certain clarity that you get when you start developing your first AI agents within your business and you actually see what they're capable of, what they're still not capable of. And that actually opens up your idea of what an AI strategy would look like if you're a business owner in a law firm, in an insurance company, in a financial services company, or in a PE firm. And rather than spending millions of dollars in consulting to be told what AI will bring to your business, I always recommend people to just build a proof of concept of something. And it's going to suddenly bring clarity to the C-suite that AI can understand all of your documents, that it can complete the work of analysts, but only to a certain degree. And understanding that degree also can bring some excitement as to, hey, we can actually serve 5 times more customers than we do today if we properly adopt this technology. And then you start doing sort of an actual organic digital transformation of the business rather than something where you pay someone from the outside to come and tell you how you should adapt to the times, which is usually a recipe for disaster if the leadership isn't really gung-ho about the adoption of a technology from the start.
I think one of the reasons why companies look to people outside is because they lack the expertise to be able to know what it can do for them and what their first step should be. So, if your message to people is don't hire someone from outside, test it yourself, for someone who may not have the expertise in house, or as a CEO in particular, who may not have a technical background, how can they take that first step if they don't know what that first step is?
First off, there's a lot of products to get started with that don't require any technical knowledge at all. Just using OpenAI Deep Research, which is available on ChatGPT, is a good first step. Developing your own custom GPT is a good first step. And this can be done by a 12-year-old. It can also be done by the CEO of a PE firm. Um, on the second hand, there's always someone that loves to tinker in almost any business. And okay, they might not be someone that's ready to start adopting an AI product like V7 or like many of the other products that are out there. But these companies can usually help you with the first implementation of AI agents. And they usually have a small professional services component to it that helps out. And then on a third note, what I would recommend is not to hire an external firm that will effectively replace inefficiency with inefficiency, but rather to adopt software and then to start considering hiring people that are AI enabled already. I think if you are hiring for paralegals today, you would be much better off hiring a paralegal that already knows how to use AI tools for their own job than someone that is inadept to it. That first person will also be this driving force for change, and they will start to immediately think, hey, this is a task I can do with AI, and this is a task that I need to do manually whenever something is delegated to them. And everything that gets done with AI has 10 times less cost and 100 times more speed of execution. And so that brings some advantages. I do think, though, that I don't think every business has to become a tech business or especially your services business, but they do have to become tech enabled if they want to compete in the future, or at least AI enabled, especially if it's any form of knowledge work.
So I love how you suggested looking for people that are already tinkering with it. I've been playing with AI for at least 8 months now on a daily basis, using different tools, constantly looking for new opportunities to automate what I'm doing. I'm also using AI to build tools for myself to make my own work, more automatable. I have a friend who She had a job as a quality assurance person, so a QA tester, manual tester for software. And she lost her job with the company, and then she ended up finding another job with the company after a few months of looking, which is quite normal. But in that time, I was pushing her really hard to figure out how to use AI, because I said, look, your job is not safe. I go, I don't know why you lost your job, but any job you're going to get in the future, if you're not using AI right now to help you do your job will be not safe. Please take this time while you're looking for a job and figure out AI. She didn't. She got this job, and finally something happened that caused her to want to just try out what would happen to automate parts of her job. And she did a test, and she was amazed with how quickly she was able to figure out how the AI could help her to automate her job. And now she said, I'm never going to go back. I did something in 10 minutes that would have taken me a week to do. She said, I'm going to be the most efficient person in my entire company because no one else is using AI yet.
That's the right mindset, I think, to have. Something that we've been all afraid of is that this new AI revolution is going to be worse than the industrial revolution, as in it's going to leave us without jobs rather than just make everything more efficient. But there's also this interesting trend where even after the latest industrial revolution, demand just continued to stay abreast of supply. We now have materials that we treat with throwaway mentality. We created a world of disposable material, for better or for worse, of course. We have food that we leave on the table, and we're okay if it molds up in a refrigerator, at least in most parts of the developed world. And that's something that would be unheard of before, the industrial revolution and the invention of modern machinery. And in a similar way, we're now creating a world in which these intelligence resources are available on tap. And what this intuitively tells us is that, hey, all these people are going to be out of a job. All of these lawyers are going to be out of a job. All of these developers are going to be out of a job. What ended up happening is people are creating 10 times more websites, more products on vibe coding apps like Lovable or V0. Everyone is able to enhance their non-digital business with a digital interface that has AI enabled to it. So we're really pushing also the supply side and seeing that there's still a lot more demand than we expected for all of these things that we're currently doing manually. And the right mindset to have, because a lot of the shifts are going to happen in the short term. There will be some painful shifts happening at companies that don't adapt, is to be like your friend and ask yourself, I'm a QA tester. I'm doing this work manually where I'm clicking on a UI to find out if there's any issues whenever it gets deployed. But I can be an AI enabled QA tester, and I can have 5 agents that I configure and maintain over time that are continuously testing this software. And that person on the job market is extremely valuable and extremely in demand. So there's also an opportunity of making out of a threat or a difficult situation an enabling one by saying, okay, I am the person that is going to bring this new technology into the firm. I know the rules of it because I've done it manually, but I also know how AI can use it, or at least I know other businesses that I can work with to make AI actually do this job at a much bigger scale. And we're starting to see these champions of AI also within businesses. They're the scrappy analyst that is saying, hey, I'm looking at all of these investment memos every day. It's boring. All this financial information, and yeah, I get paid well, but this is eventually going to be done by AI. Now I want to be the person that develops, and develops is a big word here. You don't actually have to write any code for these things, but that is effectively configuring these AIs to do my job. And now my job is that I'm effectively a chief of staff of the AIs, and people come to me whenever they need something delegated, but I don't have to spend my Saturday night doing it. The agent is going to do it while I'm at the pub. And so there is really a way out of this that requires embracing the technology. And luckily, it's never been easier to learn it. In a way, it's a compounding story where if you need to learn anything about how to enable AI, you can actually just ask AI about it. And even ChatGPT or Claude will tell you how to get started on something.
And that's a really good point for me to start from, is that I currently use Gemini for a lot of things. Like, it's my chief marketing officer, my chief product officer, my chief revenue officer, my chief customer success officer. It's constantly giving me advice on different situations that I find myself in and how to handle it, where I would need to have at least 5 to 10 people on a team who I'm constantly going to advice, which then wastes their time, prevents them from doing their job. But if I'm going to the AI has nothing better to do but wait for me to ask it something. So I can say, hey, I'm in this situation. What do you do? And it tells me. And one of the things that I'm trying to automate is the asset generation for my own podcast, because there's audio files, there's transcripts, there's images, thumbnails, all sorts of things that you have to create, and it takes a lot of time, and I don't have someone to help me do it. So instead of hiring someone, I'm building an AI software to automate it for me. But I didn't know what exactly I needed to do, and I didn't know exactly how to build it. And so I said to Gemini, hey, interview me, and I'm going to tell you what I need, and then you can give me all of the feature specifications, the user stories, the technical documentation, even down to all of the database tables and the relationships between these tables. And I'm going to input this into Cursor so it can start developing the software for me. And it did it. It took about half an hour to have this conversation with Gemini. And then I put it into Cursor and I said, analyze this document and turn it into a phased approach to develop this software. And it said, okay. And now we're building it, Cursor and I together. And, years ago when I was building my last software, it would have taken 3 to 6 months to come up with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Between 3, 4, 5 people all disagreeing about what to develop, when to develop it, how to develop it, how they relate to each other, should we even develop it? And it's just amazing. So I haven't gotten into agents myself because I'm not sure exactly how. I know about N8N, I know about Make, but I haven't gotten into it because there's so many people that say, oh, well, you need to code this, or oh, you don't need to code this, or oh, you can copy this. There's just so many different people saying so many different things and trying to teach you their own way and make money doing that. And so I'm confused. And so I'm just stuck at the beginning, and I just say, forget it. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. What I'm doing now is working for me. Do you find this to be the mindset of some of the people you talk to, of I'm just stuck, I don't know what to do?
I think it's very common. There's a lot of hesitation towards agents because we see them as this very open-ended creature that may or may not return with results on the other side. Yesterday, we saw OpenAI release an agent feature that allows GPT-4 effectively to browse the web and make purchases for you or book a holiday for you. And that's a really tall order. Unless it knows exactly your preferences of location, hotel, appearance, vibes, etc., it's really hard. And we're not quite there yet in which you can just tell an agent, hey, go buy me some shampoo because I've run out, and it knows exactly what you've bought. It's a little bit more complex than we think. It can't just easily look into your purchase history. I mean, it could, but it's still a pretty technically complex system here. So there's effectively 2 areas of agents that are becoming very popular. There's consumer or solo professional agents, which are developed in a very similar to Zapier or N8N, as you mentioned before. So with small bits of intelligence in the middle, but it's largely an API to API connection where you say, hey, I'm going to get this recording of the podcast into a video editor. The editor is going to detect some clips and segment it. And then another node is going to upload them to YouTube or to TikTok. And that's something where you're defining a fairly systemic process. You're not just telling Gemini, go and make me famous, and it figures it out for you. That's still not quite there yet. And in our world within V7, we develop agents for highly professional workflows. The process of evaluating an M&A deal is really complex. It involves hundreds of documents and reading through tons of transactional data and doing due diligence on people that have information on the internet. And so these agents are still following a number of steps, but it justifies the time involved in actually developing this workflow, which is not 5 minutes like you do with writing a prompt for Gemini and maybe tweaking a couple of times, but it's something that requires a few hours of building, a few additional hours of tweaking, and then some maintenance over time whenever the rule sets change. So the recommendation I have today for agents is if your revenue depends on it, then consider building an agent because it's going to help you grow much faster. If you have someone full-time that is doing a manual process in front of a computer, definitely get an agent for them because it's going to help them as a person to be enabled in technology. Or you could be this person as the listener. And then everyone else that works with you is also going to be grateful because it's a shared resource that can also leverage. But if it's for a one-time use, if you just want to book that one holiday in Corfu, it's not always that convenient to develop an agent that knows all of your preferences because you're going to have to write all these down just for that one interaction. Obviously, if you are a travel agency, that's a different story. So agents, a little bit more of a lift today to build, but absolutely buildable also by non-technical users to automate something that you do every day.
So I do want to share a quick example related to travel and AI as you were talking. That made me think of this. I'm going to Japan in October with my brother for 17 days. My brother spent a month preparing everything he could, speaking to people who've been to Japan to put together an ideal itinerary for 17 days. He told me nothing of his plans. The day before he wanted to have a call about it, he said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Sure." I had done zero. I told him I had done zero. I've been busy planning my wedding and everything. So the next morning before the call, I spent 4 hours talking to Gemini, and Gemini came up with an amazing plan for me for this trip. I knew nothing about any of the places, but then I did some research, manually and talked to a few people and made sure it lined up with something that would fit my personality. And then I had the call with him, and he said, "Did you do any preparation?" I said, "Yeah, I just did." He's like, "Okay, great. Why don't you tell me your plan and we can go from there? I'm curious to see what you came up with, seeing as how you only spent a few hours on it." Okay, fine. The AI came up with the same exact plan that my brother did. It took me 4 hours. It took him a month. So it was funny to me because we agreed upon what we wanted to do. This is our ideal plan of Japan, which is very different than most people do, especially for the time that we have. And so it was unique and exactly what I wanted, but it didn't know anything about me. I just said, I did a few prompts. I said, "This is my budget. This is how long I'm going. This is where I'm starting. This is where I'm ending. This is what I want. Give me the ideal plan for that." And it gave me what I think is a fantastic itinerary. I'm super excited.
When you unpack that, the there's not that big of a secret behind it. At the end of the day, if you think of what your brother probably did, he went on Google, he inputted parameters that are somewhat equivalent that a model could think of. Maybe restaurants within a particular budget in the city that you're going to that have a dish that you love. And those are things that we've been able to index fairly well already in search. And AI is simply able to replace your brother's manual tasks there because it's already read through all this information and give you a condensed answer in a much faster way. And luckily, we have fairly common preferences. You know, if a restaurant is great, if a scenic attraction is great for you, it's probably also fairly good for me. And so, in some cases, you don't have to put a ton of effort into these executions. Where it does differ is if you either are working on something that is pretty unique to your business. Maybe you are you're in a particular medical profession, or you are working on a construction planning set of documents, and there's really not that much information on the internet about something equivalent. Then that's where AI gets a little bit lost, and developing an agent allows you to give it the necessary information so it can actually do the job. And I think we're going to see more and more coming from the core models like Gemini for everything that is in common amongst all of us as humans. What's the best restaurant in London for eating a rotisserie chicken? I'm really hungry right now at lunch. It's going to give me five that I'm probably going to love because other people have also polluted the internet with information about this and the models have learned about it.
Sure.
But if you're looking for something a bit more niche, if you're looking for suppliers for a particular herb that may be found, that's going to be a little bit harder for the models, but eventually they're going to get there. But an agential behavior is better because it needs to reason through your task. It might ask you some follow-up questions to learn, and then go somewhere outside of the first couple of pages of index Google searches to go and find that information sometime.
So the thing about that specific example for me was I had said, "Look, I want an off the beaten path. I don't want to go where everybody goes." And it took me through a part of the country that people don't normally get to. So we're starting in Tokyo, ending in Osaka. Typically, people go from Tokyo on the train to Kyoto and from Kyoto to Osaka. Sure, we're starting in Tokyo. We're going to do Kyoto and Osaka. That's fine. But the most of the time, we're going from Tokyo all the way to the far west and then south to Kyoto. So that we're reaching an entire part of the country that most people don't touch. And that's what's cool for me, is that it gave me the thing that it knows everybody loves, and then gave me things that it knows I would love, because there's a few days of hiking and these other kinds of really beautiful experiences with these bamboo forests and things that like you just don't find anywhere else. And so that's what I said was, I want something that's really off the beaten path, and I want something with nature, because I know that Japan is supposed to be this gorgeous country with tremendous amount of nature and these beautiful landscapes, and that's what I want to experience. I want to maximize my time outside of cities.
And you probably wouldn't have known easily what to Google search to get those
No.
answers. Places in Japan off the beaten path isn't exactly a result that will give you consistent returns. And the good thing about AI is that it can look into its own brain, into its own embeddings, and that gives it data effectively of, oh, these are less searched for locations. These are less indexed locations that have less information about them online. Let's prioritize these instead. And it comes natural to it because that's effectively already inside its head. A bit like how a human would think of immediately, okay, I'm not going to send you to a chain restaurant. I'm going to send you to the local place that is run by a family and it looks like someone's apartment inside. It's more natural for them to immediately start thinking about these options.
And I often will follow up with the AI and go, hey, that's a really great suggestion. I really appreciate it. So I'm telling the AI, you've done a good job. You've given me what I want. And that helps it with its training so that it gets better.
To some degree, it does, yes. It's very tricky to use human feedback from users to improve its results, but it is a useful way, and that's why we have these thumbs up and thumbs down on every consumer app. I'm not exactly sure how this gets standardized over time. It seems like a gargantuan data task because obviously preferences might differ a lot, and some queries are very opinionistic and some are more universally acceptable as true. But yeah, there's a lot of effort in making these models helpful to the average user. And it's actually really hard to make them helpful for people with like a particular niche opinion. They need to be prompted in a certain way.
You said something that was interesting. I was under the assumption that all of these opportunities to thumbs up or thumbs down or to thank them would help with its training. When you're making it seem like it's not such a big deal, why go through the exercise or go through the effort of wanting the user to provide feedback if it's not helpful?
Data coming from users can it only represents what your already happy users want, and it also represents the bulk of fairly simple queries most of the time. So if you look at if you think of Instagram as a proxy, what it shows you in the explore page is what the majority of people that have looked at similar imagery, profiles, hobbies as you have also looked at. And that can be good for developing engagement, but for developing intelligence, what actually needs to be done is to go and find the gaps in the knowledge of the actual model. And it's harder for a non-expert to evaluate that. We don't know what we don't know, and most users don't know what they don't know. And yourself not being a Japanese native, you actually don't know if those places are really the best. I know your brother put some effort into researching it, but ideally, we're now at a point in which these models should learn from an expert Japanese travel guide, from an expert cuisine reviewer. And this is an ongoing effort where OpenAI, Anthropic, Google's teams are paying a lot of money for experts to give the AI their own personal knowledge. And this can go all the way to math PhDs that are teaching AI how to perform really complex mathematical problems in part because everyone wants to be at the top of math leaderboards because it shows that your research team is the best and it increases the value of the company itself and makes people trust the model more. But at the end of the day, we're in this really eerie time in which Gemini, O3 and O4 or Claude 4 are smarter in most topics than you and I. And so there's little that they could learn from us other than I liked this answer, which is subjective, and it's likely going to it's likely going to not teach the model anything new other than I made Alberto happy for this one. But is it a 4 out of 5 answer? And if it is a 4 out of 5 to an expert, what would it take for it to be a 5? And that's a harder task to come up with. And that's what these AI labs are thinking about now, because they all want to have the best model. If you're not in the top 5, you don't get really as much business.
What have you learned in being involved with AI and running this business? What's the most important thing?
There is a significant amount of resistance based on geo. So we see there's a significant difference. We see the US being very happy with the AI adoption in its professional services. We see US private equity firms saying, I'm really tired of looking at all these deals and I want the business to grow and I want us to be competitive. So let's try and use V7's AI agents for this. Let's just give this a shot. We waste so much money on pointless things. And if this thing really is revolutionary, we should invest a little bit of our budget into AI experiments. In Europe, we see about half the adoption rate. So for the same amount of revenue generated, European businesses are half as likely to make a purchase and to adopt. And this cultural difference is a little bit worrying because of what I said earlier, which is that the actual AI prowess comes from using it, not reading about it, not hearing about it at the dinner table. When you start using AI, and when you start using really any technology, but AI in particular, it opens up your mind to the possibilities. You wouldn't have just out of the blue decided to go and ask Gemini to plan your Japan trip if you hadn't used it a couple of times before. And then when you were planning your Japan trip, you thought, I'm going to ask Gemini for this. And I know exactly how to prompt it and how to use it. And it saved you a month of work, or it would have saved your brother a month of work. That is a mentality that needs to make its way into the professional world. So that people actually start to immediately grok what AI should be doing and what humans should be doing within the business. And there's a lot that AI should be doing within the business today.